Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 325. Your weekly get together. We talk about recent gaming news. I'm as always your host, Steven Brown, and tonight we have to talk about the Assassin's Creed leak. It sounds like Mirage is going to be its name, and we'll get into more details in a bit. And the PlayStation 5 decided to increase its price over most of the globe. Not the United States, but damn near everywhere else, it seems. All that and more in just a few moments. But first, I want everyone here to know this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching us here live at Twitch TV/GamePoints, or later at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be it Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, etc., feel free to join in the conversation with any questions, comments, concerns you might have. Just try to keep them germane to the topics on hand. All right, let's go ahead and get right into the first topic here. This is from Video Game Chronicle. There we go. Assassin's Creed Mirage is reportedly set for release in spring of 2023. This isn't the first time I heard the name Mirage being tossed around, by the way. I did hear Sacred Symbols, which is a podcast by Colin Moriarty, mention this a few weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago. But it seems like everyone is now confirming that this is, in fact, what it's going to be called. There was, as longest time, it was going under a code name, something or other. Jason Schreier broke that back in February, but I don't think we've heard the name until then. Let's go ahead and get into what we may or may not actually know about this game here. The game is expected to be set in a smaller stealth-based experience in Baghdad. Interesting choice, given the Middle East, but hey, the first one was also set in that time. It'll be very interesting to see how they handle it. According to details posted by YouTuber Jonathan, some of which were corroborated by Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, the game will take the series back to basics when it releases next year. Bloomberg first reported in February that Ubisoft is planning to release a smaller-scale, stealth-focused Assassin's Creed game that is closer to the early entries in the series than the more RPG-influenced ones. I don't know. The formula was getting a little stale, and they had to shake it up when Odyssey came around with its RPG elements, which I thought were great, but now that's starting to get stale. I think the biggest downfall from Assassin's Creed, however, though, is that it started off as a stealth game, and has since fallen way aside. You can do it stealthy in some parts, but it was no longer the Metal Gear, Splinter Cell-esque kind of stealth that I was really enjoying from that very first game. So to see them hopefully return to its roots might be refreshing, despite it being 15 years, I think, since the first one came out. Maybe even longer. It has been a while. There are a bunch of more details coming out here. Let's go ahead. I would click on that Twitter link there, but Jason Schreier has me and about 80% of the internet blocked. So let's just go ahead and read directly from here. Let's see if I can't just go to Rebs Gaming directly. Excellent. This is the person who broke it, by the way, Rebs Gaming, despite people giving Schreier the credit for it. It'd be called Assassin's Creed Mirage, released spring 2023 in Baghdad between 870 and 860. I don't know that time period of Baghdad, forgive me. Be very interested to bone up on it before the game comes out. No leveling system. Definitely down for that. So let's see. We'll play a character named Basim in his youth as a thief until he has arrived at the Hidden Ones. Are the Hidden Ones what the Assassins were called before they became Assassins? Forgive me, my knowledge of the franchise has fallen off after Odyssey. I didn't play Valhalla, and I played. Did I finish up Odyssey? Yeah, I did finish up Odyssey some. I didn't do any of the DLC for it, though, but I didn't even touch Valhalla, so I don't remember who the Hidden Ones are at all. Multiple cities to explore, separated by desert and rivers, like the Kingdom of Assassin's Creed 1. Awesome. Or it's a bunch of smaller, hopefully more dense mini-maps as opposed to one giant overworld. Be very down for that. The game will be returned to basics with strong inspiration for the first Assassin's Creed. Several RPG elements removed. No more dialogue choices. No more gender choice. No more level system. Assassin's Creed does not need dialogue choices. They lead to nowhere. They are pointless. They give you a modicum of customization, what your character might say, but it comes down to either caring, compassionate, bloodthirsty, or snarky. Okay, cool. Whatever. Tell me a story. I don't need to write my own. Gameplay will be slightly different from that of Valhalla, less raw with new animations. Okay. Eagle Vision is back, but so is the Drone Bird. Okay, I know what they mean by Drone Bird. Basim will be able to use the Sting Dagger to eliminate his opponents. Okay, so I'm assuming that's one of those, like a rope dagger of some kind. There'll be a visions of Loki for how Loki manifested into Basim's body and consumed him. Okay, see, I don't know who Loki is. I'm way out of touch with the Assassin's Creed lore. Ubisoft is secretly preparing the remake of Assassin's Creed 1 based on Rift Mirage's work. They will reuse a large part of the assets, which could be one of the reasons why it's set where it is. You can just as easily transpose those levels, add a little bit of extra coat of paint to it, and then go from there. The remake should be integrated into a season pass, which will also include DLC in Constantinople, when Basim meets Sigurd, and will be released in a few months later. And they will unveil the future of Assassin's Creed on September 10th during an Ubisoft Forward. That is, by the way, week and a half. It's on a Saturday, it looks like, so a week and a half from now. Cool. If there is a Forward on September 10th, then I'm reasonably confident we can count this as being legit. Multiple sources outside of this guy have said they have heard some of this. They can corroborate parts of it, but not all of it. So I get the feeling this is all true. So thank you very much, Rebs Gaming, for filling us in on what's coming up with Assassin's Creed. In general, I feel that all of Ubisoft's titles need just kind of a fresh coat of paint, just a major reboot. Assassin's Creed's really long of a tooth these days, even having gone through its own transformation all that long ago. I just don't have 120 hours to sink into an Assassin's Creed game. You're not that entertaining. Far Cry is also starting to get a little bit worse for the wear. Far Cry 6 was cool. I actually liked it better than 5. But that formula needs to be shaken up just a touch. And let's not forget the games that seem to be abandoned by Ubisoft. Like, where the hell's Beyond Good and Evil? Where's Splinter Cell? Watch Dogs. I really don't need another one of those, but I think that franchise has been dormant long enough. I'm shocked we're not seeing anything from them again. It really feels like they're trying to do something behind the scenes. I think they realize that the meme of an Ubisoft game exists, and they're trying to break out of that mold, and they're having difficulty doing so. That said, they also have to keep making shit, so we'll see what comes out. Been a very rough time for Ubisoft, not counting even all the weird harassment allegations and just general workplace abuses going on there. I'm speaking solely from a games level, and even at that focal point, it's a little scatterbrained on their end. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes at Ubisoft, and I'll be very curious to know what their upcoming lineup is, if they even have one. Anyways, let me know what you think about this change coming up down below. Do you want Assassin's Creed to go back to its stealth roots? Do you want them to expand more on if it's RPG? Is going back to Baghdad a smart idea? Actually, I don't know if it's back to Baghdad, but back to the Middle East in general. Is that a smart idea, or do you want it to be set somewhere else, like, say, Japan, Russia, South America? These would all be interesting locales as well. Moving on to the next story here from Push Square. Sony has confirmed price increases for the UK, Europe, Japan, Canada, and more. Essentially everywhere that's not the United States. Go US. Sony has announced it's increasing its price. Okay. Jim Ryan takes to the PlayStation blog to say this is due to high global inflation rates as well as adverse currency trends impacting consumers and creating pressure on many industries. Based on these challenges, economic conditions, Sony Interactive Entertainment has made the difficult decision to increase price. God damn it! I swear I can read. Based on these challenging economic conditions, SIE has made the difficult decision to increase the recommended retail price. The USA is not affected by the price increase, and I'll get into reasons why about that here in a second. But for the most part, as you can see, they're going to be increasing roughly about 10%, it seems, across the board. Europe's going to be getting a 50 euro bump. The UK will be getting £30 increase. Japan will be getting a 5,000 yen increase a little bit later on. China is adding another 400 yuan, and Australia is adding another 50 didgeridoo dues that they use down there. Why not America, you ask? Well, because the dollar's kicking ass at the moment of a global currency front. The entire world is currently experiencing both recession and inflation, that lovely combination that brings countries to ruin. However, while America is also suffering from both of those things, it's not suffering nearly as much as the rest of the world is. So the US dollar is acting kind of as a hedge for everyone else floating out there. And so the dollar is staying extremely strong right now, while all the other currencies are inflating like a son of a bitch, which is why the prices are going up in all these other places, but not the United States. We can get into a real deep dive on economics about this, but that is the long and the short of it. It's just the strength of the dollar in this weird, chaotic time. And that's, once again, not to say America's doing great. It's not. The economic situation in America is also perilous, to say the least. But we're not as imperiled as the rest of the world is, and that is leading to this decision here. Mexico's also getting increased too, and Canada. Sorry, I missed both of those as well. This does kind of put those prices, by the way, somewhat in parity with how much it sells for the United States if you convert those currencies into the USD. Not necessarily one for one, and in some places you're going to have a wild variance, but it does bring them a little bit more to parity. What's interesting about this is that I can't think of any other major tech that is released and then had its price go up as late into the game as the PlayStation 5 is. Sometimes you have like your teaser rate where they'll release something for a couple weeks at a reduced price and then it jumps back up, but not a couple years. That's shocking. And I'd be very curious to hear the meetings of, I imagined, very angry people debating of whether they want to increase the price on this or not. Because this really puts them at a disadvantage to the other two consoles, especially considering that both Nintendo and Microsoft are not going to be increasing their prices. At least that is what they say. This article here is from Eurogamer. Nintendo responds to PlayStation price hike with no plans to increase the cost of the Switch. Microsoft reported something very similar earlier as well. In a statement issued to Eurogamer this morning, when the article was written, Nintendo has confirmed it had, quote, no plans to increase the trade price of its hardware. This response goes further than that of Microsoft, which last night noted Sony's dramatic decision by simply stating it was keen to offer, quote, our fans great gaming options before reiterating the Xbox Series S and X launch price point. Nintendo coming out being a little bit more forceful of saying, hey, we have no plans to raise the price. Microsoft kind of doing some wiggly, wormy legalese to say, hey, our prices are this, but not answering the question directly, meaning they're talking about it behind the scenes. Because if it was positive news, a company would be saying it nonstop. If it's negative, they shut up about it. So this discussion is being had behind closed doors at Microsoft, although I would say probably not expected to increase those prices, at least in America. Rest of the world might be a little bit in trouble. Also, though, Microsoft can eat the cost better than Sony can. Microsoft couldn't afford to be selling the consoles at a loss with inflation when Sony really doesn't have that same war chest. And Nintendo's going to Nintendo. The Switch is very old at this point. It's probably making a very decent profit now for every system sold. So I'd imagine inflation is not nearly as big of a deal for Nintendo as it is for Microsoft and Sony when it comes to that. So, you want my gut reaction to this? I don't expect Xbox or Switch to increase in price anytime soon. If one of them were to break, it would be Xbox, and it would follow suit. It would raise prices in multiple other countries, not counting the US. And even then, maybe not as many as Sony did. They might do like maybe China, maybe Japan, maybe South America, but not the US and maybe not even Europe either. Moving on to the next big couple of stories. These are both somewhat related. We have some acquisitions we need to talk about. This being the year and a half now, it seems, of acquisitions of bigger companies buying smaller. It should be no surprise that we have a couple more to report on. Starting here with Sony buying Savage Game Studios. Haven't heard of them? Don't worry, you're not the only one. On Monday, PlayStation announced that they have entered a definitive agreement to acquire Savage Game Studios. Established in 2020, Savage Game Studios was born out of our many years of mobile gaming development, experience spanning a number of massively successful global IP. This seems like them responding to Microsoft getting King. Now, King, they're the makers of all the Candy Crush games. You know, if you have a mobile phone, you've probably seen the ads for it somewhere. Well, that's part of that big Activision Blizzard deal that Microsoft is going through. But the name of that company is Activision Blizzard King. King is an immense behemoth of a mobile game developer. And it would make sense that Sony would also want at least some kind of studio to help expand into that area rather than ceding the entirety of that territory to one of their rivals. Which is why they would buy a mobile-focused developer. Now, what are they going to be making? Who knows for certain? However, if you go down further on here, they do straight up say that Savage Game Studios is joining a newly created PlayStation Studios mobile division, which will operate independently from our console development and focus on innovative, on-the-go experiences based on new and existing PlayStation IPs. So, this is where you would get like your Crash Bandicoot Endless Runner, or your Spyro Puzzle Challenge, or your Uncharted Tomb Explorer game where you have gacha mechanics on or something. You'll see all of your normal crop of mobileware bullshit with Sony characters put on top. That's what Savage Game Studios is going to do. The mobile game market has essentially been annihilated due to free-to-play mediocrity, and what happens now is you get one or two giant titles like the Candy Crush stuff, and then a bunch of shovelware, a bunch of stuff that just floods the market. No one can find anything good on there, and it's all free to play now because they're all looking for the whales. My disdain for mobile gaming is great. That said, this isn't going to take away from any AAA things that Sony is doing. It's not even going to take away from B tier stuff Sony is doing. It's just something I don't care all that much about. But it is important to note that Sony is trying to at least get somewhat of a foothold in the mobile space. And I would imagine this is a direct result of Microsoft buying King, along with Activision and Blizzard. That's not the only acquisition we have to talk about, however. This one's a little bit, it's kind of like a half acquisition for this one right here, from GamesIndustry.biz. Tinybuild acquires Basal Studios IPs for $3 million. Tinybuild has acquired Basal Studios IPs, including Surgeon Simulator, I Am Fish, and I Am Bread, and the deal includes an upfront payment of $3 million, said the publisher. Note, Tinybuild is not buying Basal Studios. They are buying those franchises from them specifically. Going forward, Tinybuild will be the developer working on these IPs, while Basal focuses on other projects. Basal co-founder Henrique Oliviers explained, quote, "Since the early 2022, Basal has been focused exclusively in the genre of co-op PvE. We have been prototyping a lot, but now find ourselves in full production of titles we are pouring our souls into. This brought to us the question of how best to take care of our legacy, our existing games, and how to ensure they have a future of their own. Together with Tinybuild, we found a path that allows Basal to dedicate its full attention to its new projects while ensuring Surgeon Simulator, I Am Bread, and I Am Fish have a new home that understands what makes these games tick as well as we do." End quote. So essentially, Basal is like, hey, we're not going to be making anything in these worlds anymore. We've moved on to something bigger and better. We want to focus on that. But rather than having these IPs languish under a company that's not going to do anything with them, we might as well score a few extra bucks and sell them off. $3 million seems a little cheap for the rights to IP. However, if you notice down here that Basal said the franchise has made $6 million in 2021. So they're selling them for 50% of what they got in 1 year. That seems real cheap. I would imagine that you would at least sell what your yearly revenue is for them, in addition maybe to an extra bit on top, because whoever you're selling to now owns it. $3 million seems really scant for those IP. Now I know you're rolling your eyes. It's like Surgeon Simulator, I Am Bread. What the fuck are these? It doesn't change the fact that they made $6 million in 2021. So selling them for $3 million just feels, I don't know, it feels desperate. It's not a good look, if you ask me. Tinybuild also announced the acquisition of Russian studio Confer Games, the developer of Despotism 3K and the upcoming title Despots game, for $5.4 million. The team will be joining Tinybuild Studio in Belgrade, Serbia. Okay, so they're moving. I wonder if that's helping them get the hell out of Russia. I'm wondering how that's going to be affected by the Ukrainian stuff going on right now. Because if they're a Russian-based developer and they're picking up and transferring to a whole nother country, I wonder if anything going on right now in the Ukraine had anything to do with this, or if that was just what the original plan would have been without that going on. Because games like, Atomic Heart, which is a Russian developer, are having a hard time right now. The war aside, it's bad business. It's a bad business look to do dealings with Russia at the moment. It imperils their studio, rightly or wrongly. So I get why people might be wanting to set their businesses up outside of Russia. I have to wonder if the Ukrainian war had anything to do with that. It's one of those conversations I like to have with someone from Confa one day, but probably not until they're out of Russia. Okay, moving on to the next topic here. This is in relation to all these mergers and acquisitions going on. This is from GamesIndustry.biz. I found this an interesting take because it seems somewhat honest about the situation with all these companies buying each other up. The long and the short of it is they got no choice. The feeding frenzy is on. You either get to become part of it or you're going to get left behind. So this interview here from Bandai Namco, done by, like I said, Game Informer, kind of gives an interesting take on it. I want to read you some of this. Just give me 1 second here. Let me take a sip. All right. In an interview with GameIndustry.biz today at Gamescom, Bandai Namco Europe CEO Arnaud Muller addressed the impact of the current acquisition spree in games on smaller publishers. That's why I was wanting to read this, because I've been saying for the past year or so, everyone's been getting gobbled up. Anyways, that's an aside. Back to the article. While acknowledging that Bandai Namco is in a privileged position, Muller said that the company has to implement measures to safeguard its partnerships and IPs, while smaller publishing outfits might suffer more directly from this consolidation trend. Muller said, "What I find is that we have to secure the IPs that we create and the studios we partner with. When we invest in IP creation, when we invest in marketing these IPs, we also have to keep in mind that where we have to get some sort of security toward the future of the studio that develops this IP, if the IP doesn't belong to us. So this is something that we work on. You know, the spread of acquisition that we're seeing is affecting some smaller publishers and their capacity to access the best studios in the world. But we at Bandai Namco have the financial means to secure these partnerships. We work on a number of measures to secure those partnerships. You're talking first option rights, you're talking IP ownership, you're talking minority stakes in those studios. So there are ways to secure the relationships. What is essentially being said here is the reason why these companies are gobbling up all these smaller studios is because companies are gobbling up smaller studios. I know that sounds a little bit paradoxical. Let me explain. Microsoft goes on a buying spree because they have the cash to swing their dick around and do it. They start gobbling up Team A, Team B, Team C. Sony used to work with Team B and Team C, but now those IP are locked off to them. Bethesda, I'm looking at you. So Sony goes, shit, we put a lot of money into that studio to help them develop an IP. We were hoping for a longer lasting relationship to get a bigger return of investment on that. Damn, we got to start buying stuff too. So now Sony buys D, E, F, and G. Microsoft in turn buys H, I, and J. The smaller studios, or the smaller publishers, and I use smaller in a very loose term here, your EAs, your Activisions, your Ubisofts, etc., or Bandai Namco, start going, God damn it, all of our studios that we did like side work with are getting gobbled up. We need some shit of our own. So now they start trying to buy stuff up, and then the feeding frenzy begins. Because if you're not buying up studios, you're suddenly going to find yourself with no one to work with anymore, because these giant AAA games are never done just by one studio these days. Look at the credits. You will see a myriad of support staff from various places all across the corporate tree there that contribute to that one game, as well as many second and third parties throwing in their weight as well. Freelance work, consultation work. Hey, we're under crunch and we need to add another 50 people to the dev team for a month. That kind of shit. The market is drying up because all these people are getting gobbled. So you have to, if you're a mid-tier publisher, also try to join in and grab what you want. That's what they mean when they say things like IP ownership. So they're not just wanting to help you co-develop an IP. They want the IP outright. They don't want just to work with you. They want to own a part of you to kind of have some say in where you go if that time comes. You're seeing more of those deals coming out right now. You can make a lot of money if you're business savvy in that environment, but it also means you're going to be hit with a bunch of restrictions, which is kind of weird. Because it wasn't 10 years ago when you started to see all this talent breaking away from the big publishers to form their own smaller studios. And now those smaller studios are getting swallowed back up again. It is what it is. In about another 10 years, you'll have the same breakaway happen again. This shit's cyclical. It's going to happen over and over again. I do think it's good You keep bringing in new talent, new blood, and your company goes stale. They break apart, they separate, they create their own little gardens of ideas, and then they get bought back into the fold again, bringing new blood into these conglomerates. It's just how it goes. I'm not as down on acquisitions as some people are. I don't necessarily think they're a great thing because I like having a myriad of places to choose from. Competition breeds innovation. Competition enhances the games that we get as they all try to outdo each other. And when you start seeding certain genres to one or two titles overall, you get Madden. You get Call of Duty. Competent, but stale. And we might be starting to slip back into the doldrums once again as more and more of these indie studios get bought up. However, that does not necessarily mean that gaming is dead. What you will see is some AAA stuff that has some interesting ideas. And then, again, but due to this fresh infusion of talent, and then they'll start getting stale. People will get bored. They will leave to start their own studios, which will then eventually get bought up again. Repeat ad nauseum. I know it sounds bad, and I'm not necessarily putting a big shine on it because there are some problems that go along with this idea. But I do think it's a healthy part of the cycle. Anyways, that is why you're seeing all these studios get bought up, because they're afraid someone else is going to buy them. Fear is driving this more than anything else, I would imagine. Fear of being left out. Fear of missing a chance to gobble up Supergiant for cheap. Just overall uncertainty is really ramping up the acquisition process. Hey there, Ninja Wolf. Good to have you. We're going to keep on moving through some smaller stories as we wrap up the news here. Next up via IGN, all new Mafia game confirmed to be in development. Now, this Mafia game has been rumored to be worked on for months now at this point, and this is the first time that Hangar 13 has openly said that yes, they are working on it. After months of rumors, Hangar 13 confirmed today that a brand new Mafia game is under development, though it remains to be seen whether it be titled Mafia 4. The news came from a Mafia 20th anniversary interview with Hangar 13 general manager Roman Hadlik, head of production, and media director Tomas Hayabrek. The pair took the time to look back on the franchise journey over the past 20 years before Hayabrek got to the news. This is more or less just confirming what we already knew. We knew that Hangar 13 was going to be working on a Mafia game after what they were previously working on got canceled. A shame, because that did sound awesome. But we don't know the details of it. There have been many rumors of a prequel all over the place. However, I would love to see this start to enter the late 70s, early 80s, as we start getting into the Scarface kind of territory. I think that would be a great setting for Mafia. I don't want to go backwards with this anymore. Let's take a look at chat here. You heard that an Assassin's Creed was completely removed from Steam and the owner's accounts. Yes, that's actually... Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here, because it is going to relate somewhat to that. Ubisoft, as of September 1st, is going to be shutting down online services for many games. Now, in terms of Assassin's Creed, I don't know if they're necessarily removing it from owners' accounts, but there are some things that are happening. Right here, in this digital age where we own absolutely nothing and we're told we're going to be happy, is one of the reasons why people still cling to physical copies, because they can have the rights to that shit taken away at any time. This here, as you can see, is a rather extensive list of games that Ubisoft is shutting down. They're sunsetting. They will no longer have access to the online functions. Things like, say, Anno 2070, unable to play multiplayer or link accounts in game or use online features. Okay, well, online games stop having their online features. I get it. However, there's a little bit more to this than just not being able to play online. Let's take a look at something like, say, Assassin's Creed 3. Read that top paragraph there. Once again, unable to play multiplayer. Okay, cool. I get it. You're shutting your servers down. The second paragraph, though. Additionally, the installation and access of downloadable content will be unavailable. Assassin's Creed 3 had some single-player DLC that was kind of cool. They had the Madness of King George, or whatever, the King George Retirement one, when essentially George Washington goes mad and you have to kill him. That was downloadable content. You're not going to have access to that anymore unless you have it downloaded. So this is more than just shutting off online servers. This is preventing you from accessing content you paid for. And you can make the argument that you paid for the online servers to begin with. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood also has online. The same with Liberation. Revelations is multiplayer only, but Driver San Francisco, once again, DLC. So Far Cry 3, Ghost Recon Future Soldier, Prince of Persia Forgotten Sands, Rayman Legends, Silent Hunter 5, Space Junkies, Splinter Cell Blacklist, and Zombie U not only are having their online components shuttered, but any DLC that you might have bought from them will be unretrievable after September 1st. Now, I understand the sunsetting of online servers. I get that. I'm totally fine with that. What I don't agree with is when you start keeping people from downloading things they have rightfully bought. That does include story-based DLC. If I had my druthers about me, they would be having to be forced to just provide open servers to whoever wants to run them. Ubisoft doesn't have to run them, but they go, here. This is so you can run your own server and host the game once the game gets sunsetted after 10 years or however long it is. But that can be argued. I can make arguments for or against it. What cannot be argued, however, is the fact that they are cutting off story bits to some DLCs. And we have seen some games with DLC that is required to get the ending of it. Battlefield 2, I'm looking at you. Or Battlefront, whatever the Star Wars one was. The entire epilogue of that game was locked behind DLC. Now, I haven't played all these games on here. I don't know if that's the case with any of these. But it's only a matter of time before we have that come up as well. And that is an issue. That is a major problem. And as I don't see anything happening from these because companies tend to be smart enough to make sure that these are essentially dead games. I'd be willing to bet that all these games combined, from Zombie U all the way up here to Anno 2070, I bet their entire monthly player base registers in the tens. And that's not simultaneous. That's during the entire month. That said, I want access to the shit that I paid for. That it's a no-brainer. It's mine. Well, I get that it's legally not mine. We live in the age of digital rights. You buy the license to something. But there will be some kind of lawsuit eventually that handles this, possibly starting in Europe and going out from there. And I look forward to that day. I hate it when government gets involved in things, but sometimes you got to keep some shit in check. And this is one of those things. So there you go, Ninja Wolf. You were talking about the Assassin's Creed being removed from Steam. I don't know if any of these has been like completely pulled from Steam. Probably for sale. In fact, let's take a look at Assassin's Creed 3. And that's just, or no, you know what? Anno 2070, because I know that game actually exists on Steam because I bought it on Steam. Anno 2070, still listed to buy as of today. Reviews mostly negative. Whole bunch of people are bombarding 2070 for removing DLC. Yeah, a lot of these are very, very recent, so people are upset. Let's take a look at Assassin's Creed 3 here. I realize I'm pulling stuff just up on my own thing and you can't see it. I realize that's not good TV, but it is what it is. It's Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered. That's still available to buy as well. I don't know. I'm not seeing things pulled just yet, but we know that it's coming. And that technically doesn't take place until September 1st. Right now it's August 30th. We'll see. 2 more stories that I want to get through. One of them, everyone saw this coming. This is via Deadline. Resident Evil series canceled by Netflix after 1 season. Womp womp. Netflix has opted not to order a 2nd season of Resident Evil, its action horror series loosely based on the popular video game franchise. The news, which comes a month and a half after the series' July 14th release, is not entirely surprising, as the drama did not have a particularly strong showing on Netflix's top 10, and cost versus viewing is the streamer's leading renewal criterion. We all saw this coming. I get you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but sometimes you can take a look at something and just know it's going to be shit. Amazon Rings of Power, I'm looking at you. You can only you can't make, I mean, this is the same thing that happened to Cowboy Bebop from Netflix. You can't take a property that people love but has a very devoted fan base, and it's only going to be that fan base for the most part that watches it, and change it up to look unrecognizable and expect it to hit. The Resident Evil movies with Mila Jovovich are the exception, because for some reason that shit took off and they made like 7 of them. But I knew from the moment I heard the term Wesker twins that this shit was doomed to fail. And you know what's really infuriating about it? Lance Reddick makes a good Wesker. He was the best part of the show by a country mile. Stop shitting on franchises that have rabid fan bases. I'm not even like a fan of the Resident Evil series. I like playing them, but I'm not like a super fan about it. But I understand that when you change the source material so dramatically, it feels like you're just trying to do a cash grab. And that's what's happening. That's what happened here. That's what it feels like to me. And like I said, I'm not even a huge fan of the franchise. I like it. I think it's gone by the wayside, however. People are wise to this shit now. You can't just say, hey, here is movie or TV show based on thing you like and not give them thing they like. HBO's Last of Us, that seems to be okay. That's giving people thing they like. That's giving people Joel and Ellie. As much as I would love to see some side stories in that universe, that actually might look out to be kind of cool. Resident Evil is, here's names of people that you like not doing thing that we like. If you promise people thing they like, deliver thing they like. And these companies will learn that lesson sooner or later, as they just have bomb after bomb after bomb on their hands. One final story I want to bring up, and I found this kind of funny, which is why I'm doing so. This is from Video Game Chronicle. Bungie warns over Destiny boss's extremely loud roar that's scaring players. This is hilarious. I won't be playing it, by the way, because it does blast out speakers. To the article. A Destiny 2 bug is terrifying players by producing an extremely loud roar when they're killed by a specific boss. Triggered during the King's Fall raid when the team is wiped out during the fight with Golgoroth, a bug is causing a deafening roar to be triggered, which has led to a series of popular reaction figures from starting players. Bungie has said it is aware of the issue and is investigating, but recommends that players lower volume during the fight. You can go to any of these videos here. By the way, the link to this and all stories will be provided down below or over on our Discord if you want to take a look at that. It's not just a loud roar. It is like potentially equipment breaking if you have your sound turned up. I wouldn't be surprised if some headsets got blown out from this. Like I said, I'm not going to be playing it. But what makes it even more funny is that when it happens, it doesn't even necessarily happen to every player on the raid. It'll happen about half of them. So half of them hear this loud noise and start freaking out. And the other half are like, what the hell's going on? It's such a weird bug. I haven't seen anything like it as far as glitches go. I don't think ever. So I had to point it out now that I've seen it. Be very interested to see if there is a reference to this in future Destiny games, by the way. Bungie gets a little cheeky sometimes with its things like the infinite loot cave getting replaced with the, 1,000 deaths are not enough Oriole phrase that hangs in there now. So be aware if you're streaming the new raid and to turn your volume down or up if you want to fuck with people. That does it with the news. Let's go ahead and move on to new releases. We do have a big handful of them here. Starting off with Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed from the PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. Crypto is back with a license to probe. The alien invader returns groovier than ever. Experience the Sweden 60s in its chemically induced glory and take revenge on the KGB for blowing up your mothership. I like Destroy All Humans. I have no plans on playing Reprobed. It was a product of its time. I don't think I'd enjoy it nearly as much as I would now. However, I would love to see another Destroy All Humans. You have to assume they're making it. And if they follow the timeline, they did the 50s, the 60s, they did the 70s, I think, with Wrath of the Furion, which means the 80s would be next. And we are all nostalgic for that time, aren't we? Also out this week, Tinykin on the PlayStation 4 and 5, PC, Xbox One, Series X, and Switch. Catch hundreds of Tinykin and use their unique powers to bring Milo back to his home planet and back to normal size. This has strong Pikmin platformer vibes. It doesn't quite look like Pikmin, but it has that same idea where you're this little tiny kid running around gathering up all these even tinier critters to do your biddings. More of a platformer than Pikmin was, but it definitely has a lot of those vibes. Also out this week, Immortality on the PC and Series X. Marissa Marcel was a film star. She made 3 movies, but none of the movies were ever released, and then she disappeared. An interactive trilogy from Sam Barlow, creator of Her Story. This is a live-action mystery game by, Sam Barlow. He's the person that did Her Story and Telling Lies. This is the third of those games right there. One of those critical darlings, but not really big commercially from what I can understand. I could be wrong on that, but the critics love those ones. Also out this week, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga Collection on PC, PS4 and 5, Xbox One, Series X, and Switch. TMNT, the Cowabunga Collection, contains 13 prior release classic games. This collection is a great place for gamers to experience these popular titles on Steam. Essentially, it is a collection of all the old Ninja Turtles games. So you have the really hard as nails first Nintendo one. You have like Turtles in Time, the Manhattan Project. I think one of the Tournament Fighters is on here. A couple of the Game Boy ones were on here. It's a retro Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game collection, releasing within relatively close time of the excellent Shredder's Revenge. Take a look at it if you want to know those games' roots. We have Call of the Wild, the Angler, out on PC. From the creators of The Hunter, Call of the Wild comes a genre-defining fishing experience. Explore a vast open world in search of a perfect fishing spot. Ride the waters on your own or with friends as you embark on the journey to become a master angler. These games are cool, man. I took a look at one real quick, and I get why people love it. It is not for me, but goddamn, I understand it now. I don't know if I want a fishing game in this universe, but I said that before I tried the Hunter Call of the Wild, and they went, okay. I understand. So hopefully it does the same thing for fishing games. 2 more as we wrap up the show here. First up, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R on the PC, PS4 and 5, Xbox Zero, and Xbox Series X and Switch. Hirohiko Akari's masterpiece brought to life as a fighting game. Battle 50 colorful characters wielding stands, Hamon, and more. See how characters who could never meet in the story interact when they come face to face. I remember seeing the trailer for this a few months back. I can't remember exactly where I saw it, but I was blown away by how just much it looks like the anime itself. I'm not a JoJo fan. I've never seen a single episode. I was confused when I saw that meme of Will Smith slapping the shit out of Chris Rock, and all of a sudden it had Roundabout from Yes playing. I didn't know what that meme was. Then I found out it was from JoJo. That's how out of touch of that series I am. This looks really cool from a visual standpoint, because it looks so much like it could be ripped from an episode of that show. Whether it has anything to do with what's going on in there, whether it plays well or not, I don't know. I'm just basing this on the outsider's opinion of what the hell JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is. Then finally, for what feels like the 10th time, The Last of Us Part 1 released on PlayStation 5. It's The Last of Us. It's an up-resed, rebuilt game of the very first game that you've all played 7 times already if you're on a PlayStation, that Sony has sold multiple times with the original Last of Us, then the DLC, then the game with the DLC bundled together, then the remaster, then the PS4 version of the remaster, then the PS5 version, but this is coming out. I don't need to play this game again. And they have the audacity to charge full price for it. Not just full price, but that premium $69 price, I believe. I'm going to go double check that just to be 100% sure, to make sure I'm not just talking out of my ass here. Last of Us Part 1 on Amazon for $69.99. Dear fucking Christ. I don't think they've changed enough in it from what I've seen to justify that cost. But hey, if you're a fan of The Last of Us, and I know a few of you are like just the super fans of it, and I love that game, by the way. Second one not so much, but the first one's great. I don't need to play it again. But I do know that there will be a lot of people who would be eager to play it through with that fresh slapped coat of paint on there. So more power to you if you do so. I'm just not playing that game for like a 5th time. I think I'm done with it. Anyways, That wraps things up for new releases, which means that does it for the show as well. This has been GamePoints episode 325, and thank you all for showing up. We do stream here live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at twitch.tv/GamePoints. But if you can't watch us live, you can also catch these shows on our Discord server, down there, or at any myriad video hosting platforms, be they Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, etc. If you like what you saw here, you know what to do. Likes, bits, follow, subs, shares, all that good stuff. You can follow us at CapitalistPig21 on the Twitter. And I do stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays here at twitch.tv/GamePoints as well. Until then, however, stay safe, take care, and I'll be seeing you.